pagans or heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse.
Welcome to another episode of Trouble Performing, a series of salon-style podcasts discussing issues in contemporary live art practices, hosted by PULSAR, that's Tif Robinette, myself, and Ian Deleón.
That's me.
This episode is brought to you once again by Incident Magazine and was recorded on August 6th, 2016 at our home. For this episode, we were joined by Bynoe, Polina Sivolobova, Ming Liu, David Lagaccia, Huisi He, and Olivia Coffey. Our conversation focused primarily on issues related to performances and public spaces. I hope you enjoy.
So, one quick little line that we've been continuously getting inspired by that I wanted to read to open this up. When any work is open to the public, it is open to physical discourse. This is Christopher D. Arcangelo, New York artist. But I love this idea of physical discourse, and I think what better way to talk about that, like visceral reactions from the audience, than from starting by talking about some public performance work.
What, in the context of the quote, what does physical discourse mean?
For him, it's about the audience having an opportunity to edit. So he had text and other two-dimensional objects on the wall, and he was okay with the audience coming in, like changing it, affecting it. So like a very visceral, very physical kind of discourse.
Okay,
which we also like at PULSAR.
So the spectators have a physical discourse with the work being presented. Okay,
that's right. Yeah.
Was there a performative aspect to his piece also? Was he present in the space?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't really know too much about it. Just something to get us flowing. Yeah.
I mean, like, this goes back to our talks before about audience, and just physically the audience being in the space affects the work, which people either can utilize or neglect.
Yeah, we've had those conversations about whether something's still a performance if it happens without an audience. And
Well, I can say from, I guess, when I talk about this later, but from in the Tempting Failure Festival, Performance Festival, in the UK, like physical discourse of audience involvement is really considered strange. It's or when it does happen, it's like for people it's really like new or kind of very it's just very, they're not used to it.
What kinds of ways do people respond? Like, do they visibly like react to a piece, or they're trying to keep their reactions to like?
Well, let's say like a performance, they would have the performer would just be it's more kind of like a theater kind of background where the person's in the middle of it, they're going to present their thing in the middle of the venue,
and you're just there to watch.
And you're there to watch.
But they place it not with like a fourth wall separating, so it's still the people would see it from all angles, but there's still this understanding that you don't break that wall, and the performer won't either.
Yeah, it's still kind of taboo, I think, over there.
Weird. That is what I love the most about this medium, is that ability to do that and directly interact with people who are seeing your work. So that's kind of a shame. It's underutilized.
Yeah, Polina, you've worked with public performances and actually interacting with people. What was your experience with audience reactions, and how did you anticipate how to engage people and how they would engage with you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the audience is it's key. I feel in a way I am expecting to be I'm expecting my work to be influenced by the audience, although I do have a pretty defined story. I think I use a lot of stories, or my work is inspired by stories, or I do want to create narratives. I want to create a narrative, but within that narrative, I allow and I expect audience to participate or to be part of it, to be part of it, and somehow break the barriers. I mean, of what they're seeing.
Do you run into problems when people don't come forward, or like?
Most of my work has been in the public space, and it is. Although I've done work that it's in closer space, in a gallery space or museum. The one that I by far enjoy the most is in public space, because you don't know what you're gonna find. You don't know who is walking by, what they're thinking about you. Either you're a crazy person or it's somehow a theater piece, and it's all fine. So it is up to me to give the visual and the specific cues for people to know that they can do something about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've been really surprised of what people do, and for now, for the good, for the better of the piece.
But do you feel like there's a risk, more of a risk with public performances? Or in gallery ones, and like speaking specifically, I guess, let's say about art context, like New York, or just like North American culture, like are people more likely to respond physically in public, or are they kind of shy to do that?
I think it depends
compared to your experience in Mexico.
I think it depends so much on what you're doing, what are you communicating in either context, who your audience is or might be.
Yeah.
The context of the space, if it's a public space, and it's also the context of if it's a gallery, or it is different to perform in a bigger museum than a smaller gallery space or performance art space. So I think it depends so much what you're doing.
How did people receive your piece, which was like very directly, I would assume, about an image that they would recognize from their own culture, and probably had a very specific relationship to this image that you put yourself in as like a kind of saint on the back of a tow truck?
Yeah. In most works that I've done, I do start with something really recognizable for people. In this case, the Virgin of Guadalupe, and I've done other performances where there are other characters but are easily recognized by the public, and there's this kind of easy way for them to get into, and I'm already working with their assumptions. I'm already working with their assumptions of what the Virgin of Guadalupe means.
Flipping.
And so it's kind of like a hook. It's a kind of hook for them to, okay, I know they're they're there, and I might be thinking, I know what they might be thinking, but at some point I'm going to change everything, and they're going to go, what's going on?
Yeah.
and then that's when things become interesting.
Do you think people are right away suspicious that you're doing something maybe like sacrilegious, or they're more curious?
They're more curious.
Just to see where
It
it's
is.
going.
It is
But,
curiosity.
like public, I mean, it's just a different cultural thing of like, there's lots of like feast days and saints days where there's parades with really similar iconography going down the street. So there's already this established cultural practice. So I would imagine that it's like immediately puts people in that space.
Yes.
Like in those like parades on feast days are very interactive. You can join them. You can step out.
You can sing. You can
sing.
take pictures.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a very interactive cultural event.
And that's funny. Is here we have, in contrast, we have the parades, but there's very visibly police lines to make sure you do not enter the parade. It's like the total opposite of it's like something like carnival, where it's for the community and everybody engages in carnival. Here, we just watch parades. If we're not performing and being paid to perform, we're watching it from the sidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Huisi, you did a bunch of performances in public recently, some very high-profile places here in New York. What are some experiences you had with that?
Yes, I curated like several shows in public space, like Times Squares and the Union Square. It is a subway station in New York City, and it is really interesting to me. It's like so many things happened unexpectedly. It's like when me, Valerie, and who was that? And when we did a performance in Union Square, the artist when he played a really sharp and a really loud like sound, it's to me it's like, oh my god, just like fantastic performance to me. And the policeman came and say, play something decent. So I just couldn't stop laughing. And so it's like when you do public performance in New York City, it's like the police are always involved. So you can't do this.
They're always involved.
Yeah, you can't do this here. You can't do that. So.
What about the general public? How did they respond to some of these? Like your performance in particular, you had a sign describing like a less than satisfied relationship to getting a degree in an art school here in the U.S.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, and I think it is like the audience didn't expect like performance art going on because we are not in museums and galleries, so that's the reason I just dragged everybody out of the traditional performance spaces. So it's like
Did anybody react like in a way that was really surprising to you? Or like were most people like New Yorkers, you would assume just they've seen everything, they don't even care, or what was the engagement like? On average?
I think it depends because when we in Times Square, it's like all kinds of people there, like travelers.
Lots of foreign people.
Yeah,
And there's
like
tourists.
tourists.
And there's like there's people in the costumes walking around.
Right.
It's a very surreal place.
Everything is trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
The naked cowboy.
So I think in that
Almost.
performance event, I think the audience, like the travelers, like passengers, they're just like curious, really curious. What's going on here? And when the audience play a really sharp voice, everybody like so surprised. What are we doing here? So, but when we in subway station, when we are in subway, so people will probably think we'll just ask for money. So it's like while holding my canvas full of charcoals and say neutral. Hatred. So I just hold the canvas and come to a young people. I think this person probably like 25-ish. So when I said, could you help me erase my hatred? So I'm curious what the response would be, and he just told me, I didn't have cash.
I don't have cash.
Yeah. So
Because we're used to people just asking for money, not like to engage.
That's kind of a surprise to me. So because
So it was hard to get people to engage with like what you were trying to communicate.
Because it's in subway, train, car.
You did it on trains too while they were moving, right?
Yeah. So people just thinking
we're used to
people asking for money.
Yeah. Every day.
Okay.
Something else happens and it's automatic. We're like, oh, we don't have any money.
It's like I don't want to take too much of your time, but you know,
Right.
we hear that every day.
Right.
That's interesting. Who did step forward and help with the action?
Who?
Like, yeah.
You mean who participated in the
Yeah.
event?
How many people
Me,
did you?
we have 4 artists, 2 photographers. So the participating artists were me, Nista, Carl, Carl, and Topsy.
Can you talk about Uniska's performance? I
Oh
feel
my god,
like
Uniska,
this would be good.
I can only
for a
imagine what that is.
she has a very strong like cat personality.
Yeah.
Presence.
And the presence.
Performance
Yes.
personality.
And she's like, she just has this power, you know, inside of her. So every time she did a performance, it looks like shock to me. It's like she did a performance in Panoply, and she played who's that? Trump. She played Trump. So the whole performance was so like forcefully engage her to let people engage in her performance. And in this like in my event, she just wear a black mask and hold a cardboard said dangerous species.
Yeah.
So and she just show up say give me some like sudden like I don't know it's so some people just say fuck off.
Yeah.
But but to me it's a really strong performance.
Yeah. I can imagine that.
Yeah. Did she get any very intense reactions from people? Anything
I think so.
close to
Like people,
aggressive?
no aggressive. I don't think so.
But she's very aggressive.
She was very aggressive.
She's
I
always
think the
very
worst
aggressive.
thing was like say fuck off.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think generally speaking, people were nice.
I think I saw a video of her actually directly interacting with police officers, which is.
You mean
yeah.
Uniska?
With that same piece, with the mask and the sign. I think I saw someone who had shared a video of that, and I was like, that is just so gutsy. That is, it's not just for the public, like, you're confronting people who, police officers who kill on sight because of blackness. And, like, I wonder what they thought about that. How they...
Yeah. Oh,
They got
that
everything
piece was not in my event.
No.
It's another one.
Oh, yeah, well, still, that's...
Yeah, but that's...
She's just gutsy. That's just an example.
Yeah. So how about performance, public performance in where are you from? Mexico?
I'm half Mexican, half Russian.
Okay.
And
Well,
Do
seems
you
great.
have any
15
experience on the other side? Performing in Russia?
Not performing, but showing video of a performance.
Yeah.
So if you do a public performance and police were involved, speaking?
I had different situations. The one with the Virgin, both times the police came. Both times were done in a plaza. Thank you. In a public plaza. One in 2 different cities in Mexico, and the police came in both cases. Since I was part of a performance festival, the organizers were able to speak to them, and the part that they were against, or they were trying to stop, was that, I mean, it's okay to dress as a virgin. As we said before, there are many processions and parades where you dress as a virgin or some holy thank you, some holy person. But I was showing my underwear, and that specifically is like that one. Like they would say, like no, don't show that. And in one case, when people were saying like, I mean, I was not far from a church. And one of the women watching went and talked to the priest because this was a durational piece, so it was about 4 hours. So she had time to go and talk, and these are all the things I found out later on from my friends and people who were in the audience and hearing all these things, all these dialogues that were going among the people saying like, oh. But the Virgin would never show her underwear. And then the Virgin. Others would say, but she doesn't even have underwear.
Yeah,
she didn't wear underwear.
Right.
Nobody's ever seen her underwear before. How do you know if she wears it or not?
These are sinful
Do you
thoughts.
think it became an issue because of your character, and if you were just Polina, it would have been less of an issue?
Yeah. Definitely. I'm touching a very touchy.
So it was like
very sensitive.
Yeah, about doing that to La Vida.
Yeah, and also because I was very serious about it, and because I was playing with people's knowledge that yes, someone can dress as the Virgin of Guadalupe or any other saints and be in some kind of procession. They know that they've experienced it. Some people came to me and asked me, "Oh, are you doing something like of that sort?"
Yeah.
In one case, which I didn't understand at that moment, later I found out what had happened, because there was a specific moment of interaction with the public where I invited people. I had 20 rose plants around me, and I invited the people to cover them with plastic bags. So that was a participatory part, and they were really curious of how I was weaving these kind of imagery that part doesn't go with the Virgin of Guadalupe. Well, the roses, yes, but like covering, and they would ask me, so what are we doing? What are we doing? Oh, we're gonna pray for the miracle of water. So it was basically a performative science experiment. So, but the part that I want to talk about is that during that interaction, when people came, a woman came with a little girl, and I was surrounded with a lot of people, like giving out bags and all this, and she at some moment got really upset, and she said like, don't be rude. Like she said like to me, don't be rude, and especially to the girl. And I'm like, wait, what happened? And I just didn't know what had happened. After the performance, I told this experience to friends and who had been there, and someone told me, I know what happened. I saw what happened, and what happened. She came to you to receive a blessing,
wow.
and you didn't do it.
Did it?
You didn't give it.
Yeah.
So my question is, what's the concept of the performance? Why you want to dress like a virgin, and why you want to show your hand on the way?
Yeah, it has many concepts. Like I usually overlay many concepts. Of course, there's gender and what holiness means and what a miracle means. But basically, just to describe in general what the performance entailed, I had these bushes around me. People helped me cover them with plastic bags, tie them. They were like, and I climbed up to a water tank that you see in Latin American countries and many other countries where people store water, and I was giving small little papers to people saying, "Oh, let's all gather for prayer, for water." And of course that gave another oh yeah, we're gonna pray for water. But so basically I climbed up to this water tank and waited until nature worked its miracles, and the water got condensed in the plastic bags. And the first drop, like the first drop was after an hour and a half. So all this time I was spraying. People would stay all this time, just like standing there. I was like just just praying, and I would ask people to bring me the plants to check if there was some water. An hour and a half later, there was the first drop, and I just screamed out of my lungs, "Miracle!" Not knowing how people would react. And the first time I did it, people just like rushed around me to see what this miracle was.
Miracle of condensation.
I wonder if an experience like that would be possible here. Maybe in a small town, to get like a group of people really, I don't know.
It'd be difficult here.
It seems like they really like believed that you were doing something like for
Holy,
them too.
yeah.
And like beyond just for your own good. It was like this all of a sudden becomes for everybody's benefit.
And I think even people who know what's actually happened, they would like say, yeah, of course, it's a plant, and they.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they wanted that experience of witnessing a miracle.
Yeah.
Whatever the nature of the miracle was.
I like that actually. And then some people, they weren't angry. They were like, oh, you know, it is a miracle. It's a miracle that this happens, and that like plants can do this, and that the world works this way, and we can see it in front of our eyes. I love that they actually, some people liked it. I try to use little bits of like scientific elements and wonder in my pieces also, and that's very direct and clear. But I like that.
I was hoping you could talk next, Olivia, about some of your recent experiences performing in public. I'm thinking of the one down south.
Oh yeah. So that was something that I conceived, and as soon as I had the idea, I was trying to make something more political in my work, which has really not touched that so much so far. And so I thought about where I'm from, Richmond, Virginia, which was the historic capital of the Confederacy during the American Civil War, like 150 years ago, and the symbol of the Confederate flag, and how that's still something that people use as a rallying symbol, and they try to ignore the history of racism and the way that it has been used in this century as a symbol of the Ku Klux Klan. It was revived solely by them, and now it's been like redistributed as a symbol. Anyway, there are people who really credulously display it and will argue with you and fight with you in that city, and so
and throughout the South.
Yeah. I mean, throughout the South. I think even more so in more rural areas than Richmond. But still, as an urban center, it has like, people who protest outside the museum every day because the museum took down the flag.
So take us through this action.
Yeah, I just wanted to give like a ground of why I chose this symbol and why I felt like it was necessary for me to make a very public declaration of, I don't support this, I don't believe this, this is my city, but it's not the history that I choose to bring into the future. Anyway, so I wanted to do a flag desecration, and I knew that I should do it. You know, in New York, whatever. In Richmond, it's a big statement. So this was my first, public and site-specific conceived work. And I had to get a flag, first of all, and I actually stole it from the cemetery, the Confederate cemetery. That was like a story in and of itself. And I got two little ones, which I used later, but I needed a big one for this piece. I only had about 4 of my own friends who came to see. One who was going to be my photographer, and other people who were just going to witness it, because it's not in a. I planned to start at the Virginia War Memorial, and then walk down the hill to the riverside, and go across this big arcing footbridge, which leads to an island which was used as a prisoner camp during the war. So obviously charged political ground, historical ground, but not super on the beaten path. So I knew that a lot of people weren't going to be walking by to follow me, so I wanted people to witness it. Anyway, I started at the memorial, and I had the flag dragging behind me. I was dressed in like a pretty sun hat and a white dress, like a southern lady. I was wearing extremely high heels, just to demonstrate like the labor and expectations of whiteness. And I have these white ribbons like tied around me and hampering me, showing also like just how history like constrains us and white supremacy hurts us all. So I had this flag tied to a tail that was a butt plug, and I wanted to use this imagery to degrade, like as a showing of clear degradation of the flag. So I had it dragged behind me.
Yeah, that's like the saint with underwear there.
Yeah. Like the tail is seen as something that's like, I don't know. It's silly. It's embarrassing.
And anyone said anything about your dragging?
So, by the time that we gathered at the memorial, and some of the employees came out and were like, "You shouldn't be doing this here. You need to leave." And I'm like, "Yeah, this isn't a national symbol. It's not even a symbol of Virginia."
There's no laws against.
Yeah, there are no laws against
it or
this.
putting it on the ground.
Exactly.
Nothing.
This isn't a federal symbol, and even if it was, the Supreme Court has supported the right to destroy the flag. Anyway, this is not even protected that way. So at that point, it was time. It was time to leave, and I left. I walked down the hill, and I had lighter fluid to burn it, and also a jar of my own urine, because I didn't want to actually publicly do that, because that's just asking for a reason to be arrested.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that to disturb what I was going to do. So I poured the urine on it. After I got to the footbridge, and in the middle of the footbridge, I poured the urine on it, and was trying to get it to light. And a couple of people walked by, because they're going to the island. Only one person stopped, and he was like, "Oh, I gotta see what's going on here." And he was really enthusiastically trying to help us light the flag. This was the final part. I desecrated it. So I dragged it and I poured it, but I could not get it to catch. Even though I had soaked it in lighter fluid.
And you're...
Yeah. It's probably
the
inflammable.
Yes,
cloth.
yes.
Yeah.
Flags are made from synthetic material.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get them to burn.
Really hard to burn.
Yeah.
Ricky.
Not like the good old days where you could just light it.
Yeah, this is the Confederate flag piece in Richmond.
But there's no laws against burning it.
Yeah, not that one.
Yeah.
However, setting a fire in a public place.
That's how they get you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know that
He
name?
knows about this.
Yeah.
Yes. So this guy, he was enthusiastic. Then the other person who stopped, the guy on a bike, and he rode by and was like, glanced over his shoulder and was like, "You can't do that. You can't do that here." And he got off his bike to stop and grabbed it and threw it into the water before I could set it on fire.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
Do you think people's reactions were more about fire or about the flag itself?
that is a good question, and he didn't say anything about it, but I really don't think that he would have acted with such swift
Right.
swift action and vehemence in his voice if it wasn't a symbol that he recognized.
Right.
This is totally like a white guy on his little...
But he regretted tossing it in the water, though.
I know, exactly. It's like, he also got piss all over himself. and I'm like, okay, you just threw this symbol into
Soggy
the water.
symbol.
Yeah, and now...
Which is just as bad.
Exactly. Now there
Yeah.
is fucking...
But he saved it.
Yeah, right?
He saved the South.
He saved the whole South. Lighter fluid poisoning the water, and so I feel like it was successful in desecrating it, but I was not expecting that to happen. No way. And there was no police presence at any point, which is something that I was really expecting. But which I considered honestly a valid risk for me to take.
Yeah.
And if anyone had tried to bother my friends, I would have taken stepped in.
Do you feel like it's worthwhile to try something like that in New York? Or initially you said kind of wouldn't make sense in New York, but
it would still be
might be some pockets of resistance you find here.
Yeah, totally. People believe all kinds of things here.
There's still a city in New York State that still identifies with the Confederacy.
What? They wanted to secede too?
Yeah, just like this one. It's not even a city. It's like a township that thinks that they have seceded.
Well, maybe I would go fuck with them, but I'd have to know about their current day politics and how they actually bring that into the 21st century.
Yeah, I just read a little bit about it. We can talk about it later.
Honestly, I don't know if I would try to recreate it in New York. I feel like it would really just be more showy to do it here and much less
The
risky.
city, for sure. Maybe
Yeah,
somewhere
like risk of
upstate.
danger.
Well, no,
You might have a
you did
similar-
the same thing. You did a similar
Yeah,
project. Of
and I ended up using the 2 littler Confederate flags. I used that at the Essential Departures retreat because it went along with the concept I wanted to do of again, like demonstrating how revisionist history like binds and chains us all. I had a human-sized cage I was laboriously walked in, and I was wearing like bondage gear and those symbols. Hope very clear. Yeah, and then I ended that by burning the flags in a hunter's blind, wearing a camo shirt, just to take like symbols of where I'm from and combine them and subvert it. I don't know how
I was going to
successful
say,
that was.
does it make sense to talk a little bit about Essential Departures, though?
Well,
Not totally public, but
I wanted to add something real quick
to this.
about like public performances.
Well, yeah, we're still on it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But that was just my question, like
Oh.
whether it's also worth talking about the difference of just doing something outside, even if it's like a controlled public.
Oh, that's right.
farm.
I was about to actually say something
Yeah.
about that.
Okay, you say something.
So I had this conversation up at Rosekill with Miao, not Jashin.
Right.
Yeah, Jashin. We're talking about, what's the value of doing, let's say, more political oriented performances in, say, like a gallery space or a venue.
Or even a farm.
Or either a private residence.
Just private in general.
And because, as you described it, he was, you're making work in a box. You're not
Preaching to the choir.
and you're preaching to to people who already agree with your beliefs. And so you're not really creating dialogue with people who are outside the beliefs, or you're not creating images that will affect people, or ideas that or affect people who may have those beliefs. And so he was we were outright questioning the value of these kind of performances, which often can get really preachy and often can get really repetitive and can often be uninspired.
Yeah, there's something to that, but I mean, it's also not always the end of a performance once the performance has been completed. Like, it could have power later on as an image if the artist puts it out there and circulates it as a document. Who knows? It could have life that way.
Or a piece of writing.
I mean, I feel like it's always worth, if for nothing else, for some training or something.
Yeah.
But if you delude yourself into thinking too much, like, oh, this is going to have a huge impact and I'm just doing it in this gallery, I guess that's a different story. Right?
Well, I think it's also kind of where it's the point where people are seeing, like younger artists are seeing, okay, this is performance. This is what I need to do in my performances to be considered performance, and it kind of gets diluted.
Right.
Well, there's this whole thing of like artivism. It's like activism and
Creating art for artists.
Yeah.
creating art for artists about political things.
Yeah.
That often happen in galleries and private spaces where people are really just preaching to the choir. Does that do something? Yeah, that still does something. But could it be that the work could be made in a public space and be... I think there's something about like simplifying the narrative when you're doing it in a public space. People have to be able to walk by and kind of like get it.
Yeah.
Like right away.
Yeah.
You might only have
At
5
any point.
seconds.
At any point.
Yeah, at any point. You might only have 5 seconds with them as they walk by, but they should see an image that, or hear something, or be reminded of something that they can connect to immediately. So that accessibility, I think, is different. Whereas, like in a gallery setting, when we're surrounded with people who often view artwork, are trained and knowledgeable and educated about how to view artwork, how to disseminate what's happening, how to connect with it. It's a secret language almost, in a lot of ways. It's a secret open language, but...
And in a way we are trained not to interact.
We are totally trained
in many of the
ever.
media.
Yeah. And
Even if we know that we can, but for respect for the artist,
Right.
we don't do
Yeah.
because also, especially, I mean, if the artist is not giving you entrance into their work,
right.
you
You feel that though.
Uh-huh,
I
yeah.
mean, I think people like the audience automatically feels that if it's something that the artist wants you to like gather around to or stay away from. It's an energy thing, I think.
Yeah, I was
Proximity.
curious, Huisi, what you thought about that, like in relation to the piece you did at Ming's house. We were looking at that a little earlier, the sunflower seed, piece, and Tiff and I were remembering how it was like implied. I don't remember how you implied it, but it was implied that the audience should come up to you. You were standing there covered in the seeds and honey, I think, and they were implied that they would come. That they
You
would
said
take
come
it off
up and
you.
take
No,
it
no,
off.
I didn't say anything.
Right.
Because
No, you said
the
sit
environment,
somewhere.
the performance space is different. Because the full of the house, we have performance artists.
It was at home.
Yeah, so it's just not in public. Everybody in the house, almost everybody in the house, they understand performance
So you
art.
feel like the audience had some cues because of just us knowing each other.
We were educated about how to interact.
Right, so it's like I only told Ming and another friends. They say you want to stand there, you come to me. And
Lead by example. Like a plant.
What's
Like
that?
you plant somebody in the audience. I mean, I've done that before. That way you don't have to tell people. It's just like you tell 3 people.
Yes.
And then, as long as somebody goes first.
Does that make it authentic? Does that make it authentic? Is that cheating or is
It
that?
probably is. But you lead by example.
Are you surprised at how people react in that situation, though? Are people more timid than you
I'm
expect
not.
them to be?
I'm not because all my friends.
Yeah.
I also know half of them, and no, I'm not surprised at all. But I'm thinking if I do same piece in public space,
Right.
I don't think people would focus on my performance. People would focus on why you're naked.
Yeah.
Honey. They can't focus on what I'm doing. They focus on what do I look like.
Yeah, and that's the difference. I think. Yeah, particularly in America, in any country where nudity is still very risque. Very risque. Even if it's legal, like
sex is very open, but still very
regulated.
Regulated
sex.
It's legal.
Yeah.
It's fine if it's in an advertisement or something,
it's fine
or if it's in a movie.
Billboard, but if it's an actual person, it's like
shut that down.
Or it's not. It can't be in a TV show, but you can show somebody extreme violence.
Yeah, exactly. So that problem comes into play with like doing public work. How do you keep yourself safe? Because there's no reason to take unnecessary risks that do not benefit your work or the public or audience.
Right. To me, it's like if I do a performance in public space, people probably just don't care. They don't care what. I'm talking if I do a performance in New York City.
Yeah.
Most people they don't care. They have their
They've seen everything. They're going somewhere.
Right. So I don't know. I just feel.
I gotta say, I seem like on the subway where it's just like I'm tired. It's after work. And it's like I don't want to deal with this right now.
Well, you did this on the subway. How did people react?
So I said, well, people just told me I don't have cash.
Yeah.
So
Like she was just asking for money. And they
Well, you
thought-
have a
no, I hold the cameras and say, could you please help me erase my hatred? That means erase the charcoal on the cameras. And he didn't understand. He just told me he doesn't have money.
He wasn't even trying to understand.
Yeah, he didn't even hear you.
Yeah,
He didn't hear you. He just saw you and then assumed what you were asking.
And washed it out, washed your words
Right,
out.
as you say, it's like people's tired. They just want to go home. They don't care.
That's why, that going back to that conversation you were having with Meow, it's equally up in the air whether it's useful to do something like that in public. I mean, you could very easily do something in public. Nobody like turn a considered eye.
Well, I mean, it's
brush right past them. So you did it in public. So what?
It's considered. You have to consider the space.
You have to really do something to get people's attention, especially in New York.
And also, I think if talking about participation or audience interaction, a piece doesn't necessarily has to be that someone from the audience does something, an action in relation to or with your piece or with you. Or I think there are other ways of opening up to the audience, which are not necessarily an active participation, because that's a very specific.
Well, being a witness is active,
right?
Like being a conscious witness. Like when I go to performance pieces, often I don't participate because I'm a performance artist and I kind of want other people to do it, right? I'm like, I'm not performing, like I'm not going to take over the show, right? But I feel like my body and my energy in the space as a witness is so important and is an active role. It can be like a very valid active role in the piece.
And talking about that, about being a witness, what kind of as an artist, as a performance artist, what kind of cues are you, not cues, but what kind of opening spaces are you giving to the audience to be a witness, or what are you giving them? Like what either it's a very like, are you doing something very self-absorbed that it is like about yourself and that is that, or you are somehow relating. I think it's more about the relating. How are you relating to the audience? What kind of relationship?
Are you allowing them to relate?
You're
to you?
allowing. Like,
are you opening up to them, or are you close to them? It's very like a tangible things we're talking about. Like you know it when you see it. It's like porn. You like know when you see it, but when it is porn or when it's not, you know, is it a naked person or is it porn? And that's with performance. Is it like working or not working? These are like little, like we try to go through and like pick out these tiny little things that like reasons why it worked. But in the end, it's just like
could you
almost magical.
Could you categorize? Could you name it? Could you? Can you?
That's my question. I don't know if
talking
we can
about
name it
throughout the podcast, like since the beginning, like this question of like, is there a skill or a skill set for performance artists? Like a lot of people come from a background with performance that is teaching them that it's about rawness and it's about
realness,
spontaneity and being real and whatever all these vague things mean, and it's about just kind of like opening yourself up and not being trained and not being skilled and just being yourself as much as possible. But we've kind of come up against a point, I think, where we're seeing too much of this work, like you were saying, like there's a lot of self-absorbed work, and it just seems like it's like a reality in 2016 where you're not going to really get people to empathize with you 99% of the time if you're just doing a self-absorbed thing. Like how can we get in there with you? How can we relate somehow? And that, I think, happens through a certain set of skill set, which is hard to define, but there's some. There's some.
There's people that do it really successfully.
So there must be something.
So you know it when you see it.
It's like understanding the use of your materials, understand the use of your body in the space, and how it's being presented, and how your body is both an image, a metaphor, an idea, and you're creating these with actions, and it's really much. It takes a great amount of practice to understand and really develop it. I wanted, if we get to Esther's performance, I wanted to talk about that.
I was going to say, now is a good transition to talk about Tempting Failure.
Some more from David's agenda.
David.
I'm sitting here quietly.
But I'm really interested in hearing about it because I know a lot of people that were in the show. a festival that just happened in London. Like a huge performance festival.
Yeah,
really large.
yeah.
And David was there. I was not. So you talk about it.
No, yeah, it was from like July 21st to the 29th, and in London, and it was at several venues. Held at several venues in Brixton, Hackney, and Croydon, London. These different boroughs in London, and no, yeah. Is there anything specific you're interested in talking about?
As far as like audience participation,
Yeah.
or like not even participation. I hate that word in some ways because like sometimes performances are like, yeah, the audience had to like hold a slip of paper or something, and it like didn't mean anything, and everybody was like, I'm gonna throw this away. That's not like the audience participation.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like engagement. Like,
yeah, well, I think there's the performances over there is really strange because it is kind of more of from a theater background. People approach it where like I'm presenting something in front of you.
That's how the
But like, and some artists really made some weird decisions. Like in this one venue is called Matthew's Yard. This is like this there's like this black box kind of theater kind of space, and in this space there's an actual raised stage area. And some people presented work solely on the raised stage area. And so
creating that theater.
Yeah.
Immediate theater.
But it was kind of the way they approached their work, they kind of really blur the line. We're talking about audience engagement. They were creating work where they weren't directly, engaging the audience, but you can't be helped but being just enthralled with like what's happening and just like literally on the edge of just what action's going to happen, and what consequences is that going to lead to.
Can you talk about a specific performance that you saw?
Yeah, well, one artist, Nicola Hunter, she did this work where she's a wonderful artist. She did this performance where it was you walked in and it is essentially, it could have just been an installation, and you could have just sat there for 45 an hour minutes and just really enjoyed it. But she never interacted with the audience, but you were definitely in the space.
Yeah.
Was she engaging audience?
No, not at all. No, she was doing all her own actions.
Not even eye contact?
Can you describe her actions a little bit? Like how were you engaged with it? Like what made you feel empathy? Like you were.
Well, she had somebody with her who was doing kind of like burning like sage, I guess, and just kind of doing more kind of like adding like a drum kind of music to it, like a physical drum. But how do I describe it? Basically, she was sitting on this raid in this venue with the raid stage. She was sitting in this chair for about like 20 or honestly like 10 minutes, and she was just wearing a veil, and she was just kind of like shaking back and forth, and it was just getting really intense emotion out of it. And in the middle of the space, there's this big pile of dirt with like a ton of cut flowers on it. And she was dressed in a wedding veil. Her face was covered up. And when she began the actions, she had her shoes off. One of the first things she did was put her shoes on, and like you can tell just like the way she was like the hesitancy she was in her feet before she put her feet in these shoes. It was very palpable.
Why was she hesitating?
They were filled with blood.
Oh.
We're showing a picture right now.
Yeah. Very, really intense. And, yeah, and that was the very end. She was she was painting, that's I think acrylic paint or something like that. That came in the end. But, it was this whole like mourning / ritual for I think because of like a friend who died, but like going into specific actions, she was for like 10 minutes she was like intensely having sex with this pile of dirt and taking image while thrusting a candle in her ass or her vagina. I'm not sure. I didn't see. And it was literally like 10-15 minutes of this. That was a major action, and ripping off the veil and exposing her face, and like there's needles in her face and there's blood running down her. She's naked, and it got really, really. It's just really intense work.
Do you know if Nicole is coming from theater background as well?
I'm not sure what her background is. I didn't ask.
Do you know Polina?
I'm not sure either. But I think that is a very important question to know, like, what is the background of each.
But yeah, I wonder, did you
I'm not
get
sure.
a chance to talk with any of the artists about like this relationship to theater? How?
Yeah, like some of them were straight from theater background. But like
they're doing something a little different, right, from their peers.
Yeah.
Well, I know
the
the MFAs in England particularly are all connected to the theater program for performance art.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in the US, they're mostly connected to visual art.
Right.
In the UK, they're mostly connected to theater. So, I think that might be a major difference in like the way we approach work.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we talk to people over here. It's usually like sculpture or painting or
Yeah.
Right, because none of those things give us a real grounding to like how to relate to an audience. Like you study sculpture,
Right.
You're relating to the object, not
how it relates to its audience and then like responds.
But the artist is absent from those kind of media.
Yeah, largely absent.
But I would say mainly the work during the festival focused more on presenting work absent, not directly connecting to the audience, but connecting to the audience from the work that they're doing because they're making such great work.
The kind of work by Nicola Hunter, do you think it requires asking more from the audience? Because they have to really concentrate and trying to,
what do you mean?
present.
What do you mean by asking more?
Because did the audience get what she's doing?
Yeah, I mean everybody was full. Yeah,
engagement.
Well, it was very much a personal. She was working.
Right,
she was working on a personal thing.
So do people get it, and they have to really be present and really trying to.
To get the point or message of the work, I think it was more about the image and the idea rather than the message.
What idea was it? Like, what did you get out of it?
It's a mourning bride.
Okay.
That's in a nutshell. That's what I felt that performance was about.
Nice. And someone else could have done something really different, of course.
Of course. But I mean,
if it's too personal, sometimes can be,
people don't get what you're referencing.
Right. Exactly.
It's really powerful for you.
like Esther's performance.
I want to hear about this also.
Yeah, I'm going for you to get here. I'm talking about Esther's performance.
Okay, let's take a quick break.
We left with this question from Ming about if a work is too personal, becomes too personal.
Talking whip.
Talking whip. How does the audience need? How do they get it? If this is a personal work, how do they get the image if they don't fully understand what they're seeing?
They can become indifferent.
They become indifferent.
Yeah.
They feel like they're not getting it. It's going over their head.
What do you mean personal work? Every work is personal.
Yeah, every work is personal, but specifically when it deals with personal matters. I wanted to first talk about Esther Neff's performance, where she made this public in her live art development agency talk, And she said, I could talk about it. It's okay if I talked about it in the writing, so it's public now. But basically, her performance, what was it called? The scraping shape of the socially cyclomythic womb, which is a wonderful title. It's about how she's had 3 miscarriages in her life.
What?
Yes,
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And what was so impressive about this performance is it was intensely personal. What was I found really impressive about the work is that she never said the word miscarriage or implied it in any way. But everybody at one point in the performance, everybody knew what she was talking about. What subject she was talking about.
Was she speaking like a dialogue?
Esther is she uses speech and song in her performances. This is normal for her work. And both by herself and with Panoply Lab, as performing with Panoply Lab. But basically, but she wasn't like. She would go into these chants, like she would say things like, I have a body, or we have a body. Like she would just repeat this over and over and over again for the first 10 minutes of the performance, like walking around the space, kind of really defining the space for herself. And it was so. She used these words so effectively, where it became I wrote about this about her work, where it became something about when she says we have a body or I have a body. It sounded at the beginning. It sounded something like that is a universal concept. We have body. I have a body. When at the end of the performance, she started saying, I have a body and we had a body. And it was directly just from the tone of her voice. There was just a complete sadness to it, whereas it went from this idea of we all have bodies to, it was almost like I would say resignation or acceptance of this is the body I have.
And also the we have, as in caring, and
yes,
and then the we had, and I think you said she never had to directly say the word miscarriage, but if you're paying attention, that you're of
course.
Immediately realize everybody.
But she just had an impressive. This is where I'm talking about having it. We were talking about these people doing personal performances where it doesn't really directly relate to the on the street.
Did you have previous knowledge of what she was talking about? No. You found out after?
No, I know things about Esther private things about Esther that it's her business to announce to people, but privately I know. This I did not know when I found this out.
Well.
And go ahead.
No, there's a kind of melancholy when you deal with repetition. So, and there's also dissonance that comes into play when you hear something over and over and over, the deconstruction of language. And then I become something very specific, body becomes something very specific, and then cadence and how you make these words tangible in a form can bring a lot of weight to something like I have a body.
Which is a very simple statement that any of us could say right now, and it wouldn't carry a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Of course, but the harboring on it does a different kind of reinforcement.
Over time, yeah.
I think that change over time is what allows the audience to enter into it from a place of empathy and maybe recognition in themselves. But contrary to some of the other stuff we were talking about, where it seems like there was the wall, the self. Work about the self, but there was a wall preventing the audience from
and so
gaining access to
it's just being able to communicate those ideas. And we're talking about this again, just using your materials, using your body. She's using her voice in very specific ways. She's using very specific words and understanding what those the consequences of using those words can have throughout them. That's why she knows what she's doing. There's no accidents in that performance.
Is this the work that involved a tattoo?
Yeah, she tattooed herself. She built this, and what's so great about this performance, like, she would, like, break out of, like, performing mode and, like, acknowledge the crowd and it's like, hey, thanks, and, like, go back to her. She would, like, completely break this emotional cycle into, like, this very kind of conversational. And she took this piece of, she likes working with hardware tools. She took this big piece of plywood and made a big vaginal tract, image of a vaginal tract, and she had people hold it up and she put a needle on it and have people tattoo her as she was. Yeah.
How did that work? How did that mechanism work?
People thrust back and forth, piercing her stomach. It got to a point where she was literally just did it by herself. She just took the needle and just started piercing herself with the.
She tattooed herself.
She tattooed herself.
Like a
What is the tattoo? What was the
It doesn't
tattoo?
sound like an image was created.
The image was she drew a specific image that she wanted to create.
Like an ultrasound wound.
It was like it looked like a blood drop, I think.
Yeah, I saw it.
I saw an image, and yeah, it did look like a big teardrop, yeah. But it's also very clearly like over her, where her wound
Uterus.
is. Yeah, it looked like, to me, it looked like an ultrasound.
And just I have to admit, like, whenever I see friends perform, it's hard. Not for me, just for me, because it's like I feel like I'm seeing things. They're expressing things that I will not see in, like, everyday conversation, and so I have to admit, it's tough for me.
We face our demons in performance and, like, show our friends them, you know?
Yeah, but
it's very vulnerable. Way more vulnerable than you would have, like, in normal conversation, I think.
and it's weird because, like, you can communicate this vulnerable image, but sometimes it's that you're actually communicating something, and sometimes you're just being masochistic at this point.
Yeah.
You're just, flogging yourself in public for everybody to see.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely, you have to have that goal of a message or an image that you want to use. And another performance that was also intensely personal, that we were talking about this earlier, he didn't even interact with the crowd at all. He was just presenting images about himself and his body. It's
Can you refer to him?
yeah, his name is Camille. He's French. Camille Grentree. Basically, how it was set up in this the venue was called the Hackney Showroom. It's this huge garage of a space with professional lighting and sound equipment. There's work that is presented here, and a big crowd of people was in here. And he was literally. What happened was he was in his wheelchair. This performer is severely disabled, where he's basically immobile, except for, like, his hands. And he was in his wheelchair, and tied to his wheelchair on a pulley system was a large piece of ham, like a smoked ham. And basically what happened was, first off, the ham being tied to his wheelchair instantly ties those two images together. He's tied to this, he's bound to this image. And then he goes around, he puts, like, this rope around his face. Then he goes around the room in a circle, just presenting everybody with this image. Then he stops, like, in the far corner, and then his helper really helps him out of his wheelchair, and just basically lays him under this ham, where he can't move. she puts like she was completely gentle with him. She put like cushions under his head. She knows the condition of his body, and basically she lowered the hem and tore off his shirt, literally just bluntly stapled the shirt to the hem, took pictures of him, stapled the pictures of the hem to the hem, and raised the hem and just carried him off. And literally, it was just the room was literally, the image was so powerful. It was just so silent, and how this person and how the transfer of the metaphor from the body to the material was so expertly done. So it was so strange how it was just so it was just so commonplace. There's no like grand gestures. It was like I'm just doing this. And
well, it strikes me as being really like special about his movements, and the time I saw him this as well, like where performers will often put ourselves in a like precarious situation, and then you think, wow, that's something, and then you think, I wonder what the endurance is going to be like. But there's always this feeling where like you think if the performer has had enough, call it quits. But when Camille's put in these situations, there's like all this gravitas that comes from like he's in that situation. Like if something goes wrong, or if like helper or whoever decides that this is going to go on for a severely long time, like Camille's there.
Yeah, this is a frail.
So he puts himself in these like tableaus for you. I don't know, it just lends it this
Sounds
weight.
like incredible trust in both the audience and
all
the
about
performance.
trust.
This specific assistant was a woman, and it definitely had like I picked up definite like as I wrote it, like when she was picking him up, it really was like I was thinking Michelangelo.
La Pieta.
La Pieta. And it's just you got this view of how he viewed his body as a dead piece of meat. But it was strange because it was left hanging there afterwards, long after he was gone, and people were just surrounding it, looking at this with these photos and material. And so, I felt like, this superficial image of like, that, my body is a dead piece of meat. But I felt like there is just like, the presence of this object is still there, even though his physical body is gone. And so I felt like it was very much, he was playing with this idea of the material body and the spiritual body, what gets left behind in witnesses.
Yeah, I feel like for me, what resonates a lot with his work is like it's very clear the level of commitment, and he's kind of surrendered his body to the performance, whatever goes down. And I feel like his work makes it in a lot of ways very easy to see what a lot of us often strive for, or what like a good why a good performance feels like so gripping to us. So when we see like performers just totally surrender themselves to whatever moment that it is that they've created, not necessarily a dangerous situation, but just like this full body commitment to that moment, like come
image,
what may,
to this metaphor.
and then you know that it's not just something they can like easily pop in and out of, like.
And it is just so strange because if I just bullet pointed the actions, it would be like 4 actions before very simple actions that weren't like. Again, these like I'm doing this now, and I'm holding this, and it represents this.
But
and
that's the experiential component of performance, which is why we fucking love it. And why we engage with it, because there is something like really magical when I don't even have another word for it. Like when audience and performer come together and experience something together, not separately, not as spectator and spectacle, but together in a space. It, yeah, you know it when you see it. It's intangible. It's this like energy thing that a transference. Something the performer gives something to you, and you give back to them. It's an exchange.
Symbiosis.
Yes. Symbiotic relationship.
Or like when you're depending, I try to achieve that sometimes by like depending on the audience to.
Like if this won't work without the audience.
Yeah, like if they don't want to be in it or like help or, then it's not going to work.
Right. Huisi, do you remember I'm sure you remember this. The performance you did at Panoply with the phones and the audience participation?
With the phone?
Yeah, the three teams. We had to take pictures and post.
Traps.
The one with
traps.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I moved to New York City.
Yeah,
I'm going to have a great art gallery.
Yeah.
What was that?
You say you want to be famous?
Oh yeah. That's bad.
So that project, like in that space, completely relied on audience.
Yes.
And
correct.
you just getting the audience to participate with your piece.
Right. It's like my life. I feel I don't have any control of my life. It's like I graduated and come to New York City. I didn't know anybody. So what will happen? I do have a dream. So it's like I think dreams to me is kind of like a trap. You know. Just promise me. It's like promise me a bright future. Actually, no, that's not true. So it's like I just surrender. It's not kind of surrender. It's like I'm struggling. It's like I give all the I give all the control to the audience. When I just told the different groups that you should do that, you should do that, you should do that, I was so unsettled. I didn't know what will happen. I don't even know. Everything is in chaos to me. So I was standing there, just close my eyes. Oh my God, feel so I don't know, I just feel, I don't know, I'd say it was really interesting experience.
I liked it. I could tell that you were like frantic while you were trying to orchestrate everything, because it is out of your control. Like you have these actions you need us to do, but it really required people to, get off their butt and be active, and not just one or two people, but like everybody. Yeah.
And eventually, it turns out really good.
Polina, anything else you've been thinking of? So some notes
I do find that it's challenging, at least for me, to I'm just like going through works that I've done, and I usually have a very, as I said before, like a strong narrative, although there's the participation or there are entrances. I do take the audience very, very much. I think a lot about the audiences and psychology and how people are going to view it, but I do at the same time I have a very specific narrative and kind of image. I do work with images that I want to create. So I do value what you did in terms of okay, let's see how this goes. I have a set of actions, and let's see how it goes. It kind of reminds me of I'm a teacher, and I value organized chaos.
That's really good.
I teach art, so I actually value organized chaos, which for a regular teacher it's just a disaster. But I think it goes to my personality of being more like in the center and kind of like having everything under control. But I think it goes to personality and things that you're going through. So as you said that you just had arrived to New York City and you were creating work that is about your experience, which I think it is a very valuable thing for any artist to do work about themselves and eventually move out of it. But I think it gives you a lot of material, a lot of learning about yourself, and kind of like when you see in retrospect and see, in my case, I keep doing things where I'm blindfolded or that I cannot see. That it's a repeating thing in different ways. So it's if I dig a little bit deeper, I said, well, yeah, it's just this feeling of kind of trying to be in control, but at the same time, I don't know what. We don't know. It's just kind of like letting yourself go. So yeah, it's just that's surrendering is, it's hard because at the same time you are in a position of, you're not an audience member. You're there as an artist, as a performer, and you're there to present something. How you do it, then that's your choice. But you are already in a different position. It cannot be otherwise. Or maybe it can. I don't know. Otherwise, it's you're.
Yeah, but I feel like it's there. That power dynamic is there, and then it's like, what does this performer do with it? Do they give me back something that makes me happy that I trusted them in the first place? Or that.
Yeah.
I always like to feel like I've been considered as an audience member by the performer. And yeah, with the majority of work, with spectacle, you can kind of be there or not. The scene could be empty and it goes on without you. But there's some magic when you, as an audience member, feel like it couldn't have happened without me being here. One reason or another. Like, I helped make this as well.
I try to do that all the time. One of my favorite pieces that I did at Gray Space was the one with... yeah, exactly. I ended it. The final action was I had this huge tree branch. And I had my little area where I had been doing my actions, and then I sat down in the middle of it in a pile of dirt, the tree branch, and I had passed out all of these little items and ribbons and trinkets to every single person in the room. Like, every person, including the camera people, got one.
who usually are like, I'm not part of this.
Exactly.
I'm a robot with a camera.
Yeah, and some people are more likely because of their personality to step forward and like, I'll volunteer, but like I wanted every person, and so I had them all come and then decorate the tree, and that final object that was created was more beautiful than I had imagined, and I really felt like I was successful because I reached out to every person, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where like it wouldn't be possible if people didn't participate. It was one of my favorite moments.
What does it say about an audience that they see this? They come to a venue like Gray Space to see this kind of work, when they still get kind of flustered when they when they do confronted with this idea of participation.
Well, I don't know. Some people are more familiar.
It's open choice too.
Yeah.
Like, I personally don't often participate in other people's pieces.
Yeah.
Because I'm a performance artist. Like I said this before.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to be in another performance necessarily. Like, I want somebody else to be in it. Yeah. I'm not really so much of a participator. So.
And also the participants.
It's different. I am a witness. Like, I'm fine with that being my role.
And also there has to be a reason for participation.
Right. Yeah.
Why it has to speak about... I mean, at the end, you're making art. I mean, that's the idea. That you're communicating something with... You have this immense array of choices that you can make as a performance artist, but you are communicating, I hope, something. How you do it, that's that's the artist's choice. And participation is one. I think we're throwing the word like participation as a natural thing, but also we're talking about engagement or taking the audience into an account. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an actual. It's subtle. Yeah,
it's super subtle.
It's subtle.
It's like for me, it keeps coming back to like awareness, which was why I think of performance like more architecturally than anything else. Like if I relate it to another art form, for me, it's all about feeling the space that you're in, and when you're really concentrating on it, you totally make decisions based on your knowledge of the space you're in and who's there and how they're looking at you. Like it's one thing that I learned in the program that I was in that I take with me as like a useful performance art skill, which is like this consideration for how the audience is going to view your piece. Like normally, well, a lot of the times the performer is just working this way, and it's like, I'm going to present myself this way. Like this is how I want to look out. But how is the audience going to experience this thing that you're doing? And are you putting yourself in the best place for them to get what you want?
Can I just ask, just to put the question out there? What's the drive of wanting audience participation in the work? How does that? Why? In performance art, why? Why should we care?
Because it's the only medium that allows that to happen in real time.
It's still happening in real time, but
not necessarily. You don't need. I mean, audience. It is something, but
because I've seen performances where it's like this performance would have probably been a lot better without artist participation. Countless performances I've seen like that.
Yeah.
So what's the actual drive in performance art to say, just because saying this is what performance, this is what we're calling
for the sake of participation, right? That's like, but I'm talking about like where you get a like we're social animals, and I feel like when a strong connection has been made, like that's ultimately what I strive for.
Yeah.
And when you feel that, when you do get it, you're just like, oh my god, like that's why you do everything.
Yes.
Which is like I tried to boil it down for the in like a kind of quirky way for the last performance I did, where at Taurus Porta I had everyone in the dark facing away from me while I went around behind them and very gently, lovingly used one of these little head scratchers on them. Kind of, if you're caught by surprise, kind of make your eyes roll back in your head for a little bit, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
I said it's really good. I want it again.
Yeah, Ming wanted it twice, but yeah, it was just about. I thought to myself, what I really want out of these performance events is to have like a real connection with everyone there. Yeah, to get like on some level more intimate with everyone than just your average like social encounter. So that's the draw.
I feel similar. Like I want to create this communal experience where something magical is happening, and people don't necessarily need to have like change their whole worldview after it. But I want them to feel like they've been part of something that was cool and special and unique and never to be repeated. And if you saw it on video, it wouldn't be the same because you had to be there. And that's like why I love this medium.
And if you want to get deep about it, like runs counter to the way our society like trains us to think, which is super individualistically and have a lot of barriers and personal space which is necessary, but personal space that's often about like just privatizing everything and keeping everyone out. And so this is very much like antithesis to that, like about drawing more intimacy when we need it.
We also have to consider something probably hard to consider, but we ourselves also are jaded, because we're New York artists living. We will have an opinion. We will have an array of experiences either through our own our performances. So like Tif was saying, like, oh, she wouldn't participate in somebody's because I mean I do have a similar attitude, and I'm critical, but maybe not. So it's also very it's a we have to like kind of like constantly I think like be checking ourselves who is speaking with inside of ourselves, like, you know, the ego, like you know, it's how to detach from what you're viewing, how you can not detach and see it like, oh yeah, as a person I love it, but as an artist, so it's we're in a different situation than maybe other audience members that we might be talking about, because it's something we think about, we do, and experience, and
yeah, even like I know what you're saying. Like you'll be viewing something, and you're like, oh, I wouldn't have done that. Like, oh, you can see how nervous she is. Like, you know, she rushed that too much. Like we're thinking critically, like if we were there. So that separates us a little bit from it. But I love seeing my friends. I love seeing my friends present work. That I like seeing what people do. So I don't think it poisons it for me. But I catch myself.
For other like social events though, like don't people get a lot out of feeling like they've been a part of something magical, even though that might be really like an illusion? Like I'm thinking, you know, to take it all the way up to like sporting events or something like that. It's very detached, and you're not literally involved at all. But there's a way sometimes where the audience member feels like they're so connected to what has happened, and they come away having a similar experience maybe to us coming away from a successful performance, where somehow you feel like you helped be a part of that moment. It was so special because of that. And it's not to say this is every like baseball game you go to, but it could happen in those situations as well. And maybe like that's what we're all looking for, like when we go out and we seek to be social.
Yeah. Like when you walk out of a theater having seen something, like you feel like you have shared something with every other person in that group. Or even a movie theater. or like even a movie theater where it's not even live actors on the stage. You're like if something really affects you, like you leave the theater and you're like, oh, I'm back in the real world. I
mean, aren't the best experiences in a theater when, like, I remember going to like horror movies in middle school.
I know my
Friday night.
I know my best movie
opening
experience.
night, and everybody is like yelling and screaming and being obnoxious together, and the movie is made so much better because you've experienced together. You see that movie later, and you're like,
the best movie experience I've ever had was when I saw Grindhouse on opening night. It was a packed theater, and it was like all like the squeamishness and all the gross out, and like all like it was wonderful.
I went to a special screening in Purple Rain after Prince dies in Baltimore, and people were so into it. They got up and started dancing.
Yes.
Like, you know, telling each other how
or like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Concerts too, where like you're just dancing in a huge crowd of people.
Where like audience participation.
where you can
like
throw.
Yeah.
I love throwing things.
That's something I want to bring back to performance art. Like I want to have like a basket of Rotten Tomatoes. If you don't like something, fucking like it's getting boring, just like throw a tomato.
Tif, I have ever since we talked about like one of the first salons here, we talked about Anne Liv Young and how she interjects, how she in character like interjects in other people. And
sometimes in, sometimes not.
I have not been able to forget about that, and I think I try to remove in my work, and also like in the act of witnessing other people's work, like remove the stodginess and the forced reverence. Like you're supposed to just be quiet and watch and be respectful, and like I want to see something that I hate so much that it's worthy enough to interject that way. I haven't seen anything yet that I hate that much.
How are you going to interject?
Too.
I will bring some tomatoes, like Tif says, or also just get up and be and I don't know.
Like to feel like you're in an environment where people, one, have those reactions still, and feel like they can express them.
Yeah.
Because now either we're not feeling anything, we're afraid to react a certain way, and maybe on top of that, people like repress them, which kind of like drew us to organizing these salons, because we having all these internal stuff, just like me and you at the house, and we're like, well, we can't talk about this with anyone. There's no platforms out there. It seems taboo to do it right after the piece at a show, and nobody's interested in doing that anyway. So
and say that performance is total crap.
Sometimes I come away like that, and then like I think about it later. I'm like, oh, you know what? I should get off my high horse.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I feel like those tomato things, as tasteful though they might be, like provided some level of productive feedback.
Yeah.
So, and you know, being booed, like maybe there's something to that.
I would be terrified if that happened to me, but like I would need it also.
Yeah. I've been totally heckled at shows, and I fucking loved it. Like I was really happy that somebody felt so uncomfortable that they had to heckle me throughout my piece.
What was the context? Like,
the context was it was actually like hilarious, and I was very happy it happened. But it was in Lower East Side, and I was doing a piece, and I have these like obsidian, which is like a type of stone that comes out of volcanoes. So these like lava rocks, basically, that were shaped into eggs. And I had them all inside me. And I was like very inhuman looking, like in the piece. I was like a sci-fi angel, basically. And at a certain point in the piece was like loosely about women's bodies, fertility cycles, and things like that. And I just happened to be on my period during that piece, like heavy bleeding. It was just happenstance. So I just used it in the piece, and I had this big, like, almost like wrapped bandage diaper thing as panties, and there was like blood like seeping out of it, basically, because I was like, heavily bleeding. And then at a certain point in the performance, I like squatted down and pushed out these 3 eggs, which I'd like jammed up there earlier. And the 3 obsidian eggs, and they said I had inscribed them and with an engraver, and they all said yes, no, or maybe. And so I pushed them out, almost like a reading of chants, like scrying, like a reading of chants. And they popped out and like rolled throughout the room. And people like freaked out and like tried to get away from them because they were like covered in blood. And people were freaked out that they'd come out of my vagina. And this guy in the audience just started making incessant chicken noises, like walk, 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 walk. And like he couldn't like contain himself because he was so uncomfortable that he like made the entire moment like hilarious because he couldn't handle what was happening as a serious moment. He had to make it lighthearted. And so those kind of like, and that piece was changed because of that, and the audience reacted to him reacting to me, and so I like rolled with it, and yeah, it like kind of, it was like a serious action. And so at first it kind of bothered me. I was like, oh, this motherfucker is like heckling me because he's so uncomfortable with women's bodies and what they do. But then I was like, actually the entire piece is made by that because it like highlights it highlights the insecurity and highlights the things I'm actually talking about in this piece. And so like that piece, I like, it wasn't, when I conceived it and like looking back on it, it was actually more successful because of his heckling and his interaction with me than it would have been without it. And so like those kind of like uncomfortable engagements are completely valid. Somebody immediately reacting and saying like, fuck this, and like that dialogue happening, for me as a performer, like the worst thing that can happen after my piece is for people to come up and say that was beautiful, I loved it, and I'm like, thank you, like that was really, like, that's lovely for you to say, but I'd rather hear you say, like, that made me really uncomfortable and upset, and I need to talk about it with you now. Like that to me is like that's opening up to like a constructive conversation, because I didn't make it for beauty's sake. I made it for necessity's sake. Anyway, that's all it is. I'm gonna eat my popsicle.
Do you still have pictures of it, of the performance?
They're not very good, but
I have the eggs too.
I sold the eggs.
How big are those eggs? Honestly.
They range from like this size to this big.
Oh, I want to see that.
Like jam it on the thing inside?
Ain't no thing.
No, just a lot of breathing. You lay on a bathroom floor and breathe a lot. You can get a lot of. You can pack a lot in your vagina if you like lay down and breathe a lot.
Those are the same ones from Hellcats, right? Oh yeah, I knew it.
Was it at ABC Rio?
No, it was at Ventico's anxiety, performance anxiety.
Or the
Performing anxiety.
Performance anxiety.
Which one
Performance
was it?
anxiety. It was like 3 years ago.
Oh, damn.
Is this the place where they closed the gallery that closed already? Was something like that?
In the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
Gallery Sensei?
Gallery Sensei.
Well, they moved
Yeah,
to
yeah,
that
yeah,
place
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think that uncomfortable space is very necessary for the production of conversation. I also think that, we're all so conservative. I'm not sure what happened when we've all decided to become these like tightly wound up people that can't look at our insides anymore. When did we become so fearful? And
other people's ideas.
yeah, well, I think it's really easy to just retreat. I think it's easy to go to shows and just sit in the corner, say it's nice. Beautiful is okay for me. Nice is like the
nice. That's
nothing. For you.
Yeah, it means
like
nothing.
You definitely don't want to ever hear that anything is ever nice.
It was good.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah, like, it's almost condescending. Yeah. I prefer to for you to absolutely loathe.
Yeah. Have issues with.
Yeah, or say, these connections, I think that you're being delusional by making them.
Yeah.
Or,
there's like a
that,
constructive provocation.
Yeah, XYZ probably only fits together in your head. But that conversation is useful. So for me, it's really useful to have feedback. It's useful to be able to engage with discomfort because it lends to a certain kind of knowledge base for all of us, especially if you're, a witnessing, if you're an audience member, if you are the artist, him or herself. I think it's always useful to get that feedback because it then provides you with a different way to think about, practice, your language, language and accessibility is a hell of a thing.
Well, I mean, well, it's just like you're seeing what I most enjoy about performance is that you're seeing another person's perspective. You're directly seeing another person's perspective on life or issues or certain issues or how they present their body. I think what's so. That's why there is no same performance from another performer because I'm seeing your perspective, this psychology. Like if you got two painters into the room, they said, draw this desk. You're gonna get two very different interpretations of the desk. Same with performance. You're gonna get two very different interpretations of their perspective on this idea or this image.
Yeah. And it relates to like personal history, I think, in a really intense way.
You can't escape your body.
Yeah. And some people might read into, and it's like a Rorschach test in a way. You're trying to direct them towards this idea, but audience can take it in numerous different directions based on their personal history, how they feel in the moment, what they're resistant to, what they're accepting of, what they consider to be taboo, what they don't, based on culture. Which is like a huge thing when making work and thinking about audience and place and what the audience is going to take out of it. I try to anticipate that by doing as much research as I can, but you never can totally understand. Like, for me, like, doing work in other countries, like, Ian and I did a piece in Peru in the fall, and in it I was beating him, and he was sort of this, like, helpless insect, which I, like, cut open and ate his insides out, and it was very, like, horror film. Yeah, it was very, like, horror film and, like, real, actual pain for him. I had this giant broom. I was beating this like life-size human insect.
I like that image you presented.
Based off, you might know this Holly, Clarice Lispector. You know her writing?
No, I don't.
She's this Brazilian. I call her like the Brazilian Kafka. She has this great little tale about like a upper middle class woman living in Rio sometime in like last century.
In like the 60s. Maybe.
In like the 60s, and like a high rise, and she's like all alone in her condominium, and she has an existential face-off with a cockroach
for days.
For days in a locked room that she's
locked
like
out.
What's the story called?
It's called The Passion of G, according to GH.
The Passion according to GH.
Anyway, sorry.
So like the way I don't think I could have anticipated the cultural differences between performed similar work. It's like an ongoing series with this like aesthetic and ideas that we performed 3 or 4 times now in New York and then there. And there, women fucking loved it. Like it was insane, the response to me. They didn't come up to Ian afterwards. They all came up to me. And this included custodians in the place, the cleaning ladies, security guards, like women from all like walks of life and like class distinctions came up to me and told me that they completely connected with it. It made them feel really empowered, and they were really happy. I was like killing this man insect.
You're the female mantis.
I was like the female. Yeah, it was just like an incredibly empowering symbol for them. Whereas like when we performed this piece in the U.S., it has a very different reaction, where people aren't so worried about him. Or are worried about him, but they aren't getting like the empowerment issues. And I think it's just because like our country is in a different place right now with women and women's rights and cultural distinctions and like gender distinctions are a little bit loosening here. So it was read more of a like kinky act. Like very much like a sexy kinky act, and there it was read as like a very empowering act. And those and it's almost like I can never anticipate like what that's going to be in an audience in a way. Like I can only react to it and like change things in the future and reflect on them. But that's kind of the beauty of performance art because like when you make it, it's not. When you conceive of the idea, it's not finished. It's not finished until like it's been processed by everyone there, and you have a response, and it's ongoing.
I mean, talking about that, I've lived in this country most of my life, but I'm still not from here, and people see it and know it, and I know it. So that's always in my mind. That's always my that I will be read. I will be labeled as, as Mexican Russian, outsider, exotic, and I mean sometimes you don't want to, and so how do you get out from that? But at the same time, you are true to yourself.
You
I mean, I
turn that into your strength.
Well, just like in performance.
That's what makes your work interesting and strong. That's exactly your background, who you are.
Yes, I get that, but that comes with something. You embrace that. That makes you stronger, but that also makes you something. The other, and it depends how you use it or
I mean, just like in performance, you're in everyday life. Your body's just an idea that people see. You wear the clothes you wear, how you present yourself. There's all contribute to how people see you, or create the identity before they actually get to see you.
Yeah,